You're watching Picks on Politics.
And welcome back to Picks on Politics. And as we approach 2025, the new year also marks a new election cycle. The marquee race, of course, New York City mayor. Former State Assemblyman, new political consultant Michael Blake joining the long list now of Democrats primarying Mayor Eric Adams. A little bit about Blake. Here's the backstory. He served in the State Assembly from 2015 to 2021. During that time, he also worked as the vice chair of the Democratic National Committee. He also spent the time working for the Obama administration, but now Blake looks to lead the city of New York, and he is joining me now fresh off of his announcement. So congratulations on the launch.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Let's begin with, at this point in time, why now at this juncture when the field is already so crowded?
Because New York City needs a mayor that's going to focus on cost of living, quality of life, keeping our community safe, and be a clear counter to the Trump administration, in which Eric Adams absolutely will not be that. I have a consistent track record of public service. I grew up in the Bronx, public schools K through 12. I served in the White House as an aide to President Obama. I was a successful assembly member for 6 years, a vice chair for 4 years. And at this moment in time, New Yorkers have to ask themselves, come January 1st, 2026, who is best prepared and ready immediately to not just lead us with a better future, which we have with Tomorrow Begins Today, but to be the response to the Trump administration and all the attacks they will bring against us.
You're mentioning Eric Adams as if he might be the only opponent, but it is a very crowded field already, and we're going to throw up this image right now of just a few of them who are running, right? And the list is getting longer by the day. So what sets you apart from them?
You have to have someone who has experience at all levels. I've been successful on the local level as a community organizer. I've been successful as a state assembly member up in Albany. I've been able to mobilize in the city and have allies throughout the city council, and equally successfully in D.C. And when we think about what's coming, anyone else that's in the race, we have great public servants. That is true. However, we will have 11 months of a Trump era and all the Trump policies. You have to have someone who actually understands how we can impact communities. Lastly, I have a clear vision of what we want to implement. Our focus is on cost of living. How do we think about universal child care while also expanding My Brother's Keeper to not just young men, but also men under the age of 30? How do we think about taxes and businesses being supported so they can hire New Yorkers and return our college graduates? And so I have a vision that has not been laid out by others. And when people go to BlakeForNYC.com, they will see that approach. I don't believe anyone else is prepared immediately to lead in New York City while also having relationships in D.C. and statewide to help New Yorkers.
I want to get your thoughts on some news that was made this morning, Friday morning, when I spoke to Mayor Eric Adams. The question was, will you run as a Democrat? Now, he said that he's preparing to run again as a Democrat, but kind of left the door open to this idea of if he would run on the Republican line. What are your thoughts?
Eric Adams has always been a Trump-like Republican. Let's be very clear. He was a registered Republican under the Rudy Giuliani era. He has now stated that he would be a part of the American Party. The question is, are you a Democrat? Full stop. I am a Democrat. Eric Adams can't say that. And he's making it very clear. Eric Adams cares more about getting a pardon than helping the people. Eric Adams, on November 2nd, 2023, was on the flight to D.C. to meet with the White House, a Democratic administration, to address the migrant crisis. What did he do? He skipped the meeting to return back to New York because his fundraiser was raided. Eric Adams does not care about helping anyone else. He only cares about helping himself, and that is why I am running for mayor.
When you look at the top issues, Ryan, you're talking about affordability, right? But a lot of New Yorkers would say that crime is a big factor right now. And while crime is certainly down in some areas, the perception of crime is still out there, right? We just had this high-profile shooting of a CEO, United Healthcare CEO, blocks away from the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree. So when you look at it, does New York City have a crime problem? And how would you go about solving it?
We have a public safety problem because of the incidents that are happening around crime. And if people don't feel safe, we have to address that perception, which is real. Even though stats are demonstrating that the numbers are going down, when you continue to see things, such as a clear assassination that happened on the CEO of United Healthcare, or the individuals that are just walking home every single day. And so how do we create a community that is safe in all approaches? Now, let's also be clear. Everyone needs to get back home. Police officers need to get back home. The everyday resident needs to get back home. And at the end of the day, we have to ask ourselves, Eric Adams ran as the law and order mayor. He said he would be the ones to address this. If the former cop who is indicted, who has been a registered Republican, cannot keep you safe, then you should put your leadership in the hands of someone who actually will.
We just had Congressman Richie Torres on, who said that there's an issue with repeat offenders who are on the streets and that some laws need to change on the local level in Albany as well as on the federal level as well. And I used to be in Albany as a member of the Assembly. Should some of the laws that went into effect, that rolled back some of the things like bail reform, should those be amended?
Yeah, there's always reasons for change. Look, I was one of the leaders on Raise the Age, and I was very clear we needed to change that because at that time, New York and North Carolina were the only two states that 16 and 17-year-olds were still being tried as adults. We had to have some common sense reform. But equally, you have to have common sense changes that happen now. And so when we think about it, what are we doing to address the mental health crisis, which is very clear and obvious that is a challenge that's happening here? And when you have someone who is a repeat offender, how do you hold someone accountable? At the end of the day, we all need to be safe. Full stop. No
what is your
question
answer
asked
to
about
a repeat offender, though?
Someone who is consistently doing the same crime over and over
Right,
again.
so what should happen to them? Should they be held?
It depends on what the crime is. I think that's one of the reasons why we have to have the changes, right? If you're talking about someone who is jumping a turnstile because they don't have money, that is a very different incident than someone who is stabbing someone or shooting someone. So I do think we have to assess what the actual incident is. But at the end of the day, if someone is consistently doing that, let's address the deeper issue as to why, and then equally, how do we create a system of change for everyone else?
And that could possibly mean a change in law.
Of course, and I think anyone who is a responsible elected official will see that you have to make some form of a change.
Yeah. And
we can't just see what's happening and think that everything is fine.
And there's been a lot of talk about whether or not New York City should maintain a sanctuary city given what's going to potentially happen under a President Trump-elect's administration with these mass deportations. If you were mayor, would you want to keep New York as a sanctuary city?
Absolutely. Let's be very clear. My family's from Jamaica, and so too often when we have these conversations around immigration, we try to divide communities. The Caribbean, African community, and Latino community all care about what's happening here. And so we are a city of immigrants that embrace this. Even the recent polling that on October 26th, the New York Times stated very clearly, more people believe that we are better as a city when we embrace our communities. That said, let's ask ourselves, come January 20th, 2025, Donald Trump is saying he will have an executive order to deport people regardless. Eric Adams is stating unconstitutional language of saying we will just remove people regardless as well. It is reprehensible. It is not who we are. And so at the end of the day, we have to make sure that we are empowering those that are coming into our city while also making sure we have the resources for our city. Lastly, Dan, to the question, though, too often this has been a dialogue where people will say, because migrants are coming here, we don't have the funds. Well, just a few weeks ago, the city and the state were able to find billions of dollars for a housing policy that they wanted. You can always find the resources for your priorities. Stop blaming immigrants and migrants for your own problems.
Mr. Blake, I'm up against the clock here, but I want to get you on this. According to a political report, you're also eyeing this run to be the chair of the Democratic National Committee, and that you would be willing and open to doing both jobs at the same time. So are those reports true? Do you want that job as well?
Well, let's be clear. There are people who have asked me to try to run for that, but I've made it very clear that I'm running for DNC vice chair, which is very different, much less of a time responsibility. And I was an elected assembly member and a vice chair at the same time because unlike Eric Adams, I actually believe in the Democratic Party and the values that we stand for. And so within that, I want everyone to understand my first priority is to be mayor of New York City. I am running because people have encouraged me to run and because we have policies that can change the game, and that is why I'm pursuing this at this time.
Mr. Blake, I appreciate you being here on Picks and Politics. It's going to be a lengthy run until June for that primary, but you're welcome back anytime, okay?
Look forward to it, and thank you for everything you're doing in journalism.
Thank you very much. And up next, everybody, what a city of yes means for New Yorkers. A sweeping plan could restructure some neighborhoods while creating new places for New Yorkers to live. Plus, Mayor Adams, a Republican. Well, we were just talking about that. Henry Rossop breaking it more down for us. Next.